Well, my plan was to go to Kent State University, and I was going to work on the ore boats on Lake Erie to earn that tuition, but I found out I was too young. So, unable to work that out, I went in the Air Force, enlisted in 1958. And we were met by the very pleasant drill sergeants when we got off the bus in San Antonio, and I went through Air Force basic training there. I went to Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois to recip mechanics school. We would go to classes, and then we would go work on engines in the shop. And oddly enough, they pulled a bunch of us out early. We did not complete the course, and they sent us to Montana, to Malmstrom Air Force Base. While I was a mechanic up in Montana, the team came through the base for testing to go to pilot or navigator training, and I applied. The master sergeant in charge of the interview team said, "I've got some bad news for you," and he said, "You did not score well enough to be a navigator. Would you like to be a pilot?" I said, "Oh yeah." They still had the aviation cadet program where they were getting guys to go to flight school that did not have their college degree. I was taking night courses, but I didn't have my degree. So we went through as aviation cadets, which was a kind of a curious rank. We were like we were between an NCO and an officer. Being aviation cadets, we got our wings and commission at the same ceremony. So I was a brand new second lieutenant with brand new silver wings. That was great. And then you walked out of the hall, and all the underclassmen were out there, and the first one to salute you got the silver dollar. Then headed for Stead Air Force Base, Nevada, and we did about a week and a half in academics, and our physical training for the afternoon would be karate training. Then I went to Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma, going through a lot of ground school, simulator, and then flight training in that airplane. I was based in Donaldson Air Force Base in South Carolina and flew worldwide, but we also had a rotational squadron in Frankfurt, Germany, at Rhine, Maine. We flew Berlin Corridor. The first thing we did was get qualified in Berlin Corridor procedures. I happened to be there on August 13th, 1961, the day they started building the Berlin Wall. That was the day we flew our Berlin Corridor checkout, and they took us on a tour and we went down to Checkpoint Charlie, and they had finally blocked it off. They were not letting people cross. And there was a grandfather there who was crying because his daughter and granddaughter were coming from East Berlin to see him, and the Russians wouldn't let him up close. There was a life photographer there, and I asked the life photographer if this grandfather could use his long-range lens to see his granddaughter and daughter, and he did. And then we started to fly in Vietnam before people knew what it was. I flew to the Dominican Republic when they overthrew Trujillo. I was one of the first airplanes into Cuba when we had the blockade. And then I had another trip to St. Louis to pick up one of the space capsules. I think it was Gemini 13, but I didn't keep a log on it. But it was built by McDonnell in St. Louis, and then we flew it down to the Cape. And they offloaded it and then trucked it over and put it on top of the rocket. So on the way down from St. Louis to the Cape, I went back to look at it and climbed up on it, got a picture of it. So I was the first pilot on board that Gemini capsule in flight. And that's where I got the reputation of being a half astronaut. Well, anyways, with the Million War Stories, I eventually got out of the Air Force in '66 and went with Delta Airlines. And then I flew with them till 1997. But to supplement income, when you first go at the airlines, they paid us a pittance, $550 a month. So a lot of guys joined the reserves or guard, and that's what I did. After a year and a half, we got called to active duty during the Pueblo, when they captured the Pueblo and the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. My military flying in 1972, we got rid of our 124s and got de Havilland C-7 Caribous, and I flew that for 10 years. That's when I got out of the reserves. I had had my 24 years, and that was enough. I've never had a real job. All I've done is fly airplanes, and they paid me for it. I loved it, and I can thank the United States Air Force for giving me the education and the wherewithal to be where I am today. I mean, I'm just a kid from a coal mining town, and I got to be an airline pilot and an Air Force lieutenant colonel.